So one of the few people who watch my videos is my own dad, and I don't watch other people's videos on these things. It's just something I don't really have interest in doing. But my dad does, and he tells me what subject matters that other people are discussing. And he said almost all of the items that I discuss on this YouTube channel are being also discussed on other YouTube channels, which to me is great. I told him there should be 10,000 people talking about these things. But he said there was one thing that none of them will talk about that I bring up from time to time. And for that reason, I'm going to discuss it today. It is extremely important. It is absolutely paramount that everybody should know about it. And it is the most frightening thing, is the most frightening subject that I have discussed on this YouTube channel. And it's going to happen in the world. Nothing in this world cannot stop it. What subject am I talking about? It is 3.5 years of no rain. Yes, 3.5 years of no rain. It is discussed in Revelation 11. When the two witnesses arrive on the scene. Now, the two witnesses are actually discussed in Isaiah 66. I have gone over this before. They're going to be among those who escape the clutches of Rome in the last days. They're going to be sent back and order some of the most frightening things and devastating things that the world has ever experienced will happen as a result out of what comes out of the mouth of these two men. Let me make something very, very clear. What is going to happen is going to be trauma that the likes of the world has never seen before. And one of the many plagues that will fall upon the world is going to be 3.5 years of no rain. Verse 1, and there was given me a reed like unto a rod, and the angel stood, saying, Rise and measure the temple of Jehovah. Remember, one thing I wanted on the outset is to mention that Yohanan wrote the book of Revelation, or he received this revelation, and in fact he even talked to the apostles about it, including Paul, before he was sent, I think, well, I know he talked to Paul about it. Anyway, because Paul mentioned that one of the apostles he wasn't sure if they had ascended to heaven in a dream, a vision, or for real. Well, John came out and said, no, it was a vision in this particular book. But anyway, so at the time that Paul was receiving this vision, the temple was still intact and the altar. And he said, and then the worship therein, but the court which is outside the temple leave out, and measure it not, because it is given unto the Gentiles. And the Gentiles will tread the holy city down for 42 months. Well, the way this worked was, they besieged it, and I would say for maybe 41 or 40 or 41 months. And inside the holy city, this was something that the Romans, the way they always conducted their business. They besiege a city so that people will starve to death, go mad, and eventually start killing each other. In fact, this is what they did in Carthage. I'm going to talk about Carthage in a little bit. The reason why I'm going to talk about Carthage is there are great documentaries describe in great detail what happened to Carthage. Okay? And you can use those documentaries to understand what happened to Jerusalem and realize what Rome has got coming to it. They shall tread the holy city down for 42 months. Indeed, that's exactly what happened. After 42 months, the city was much like Carthage. Well, I mean, not as quite as bad as Carthage, but almost. And I will give power unto my 2 witnesses, and they will prophesy 1,260 days, clothed in sackcloth. Why in the world do you think that he mentions this right after he mentions the holy city being tread underfoot for 42 months? Is it going to happen right after? No, because if you read in Daniel and you read what is it, Matthew 24, I believe? Yeah. Clearly a long time would occur before revenge against the Gentiles took place. Which Gentiles? Rome. Rome was the one who did it. History proves Rome was the one who sacked Jerusalem. But not only Rome, the Arabs, I believe there was a Greek contingent involved in it as well. They all were involved. This verse 3 is, he is just making a notation of this is what he's going to do to the Gentiles in retaliation for what they did to the holy city. And these 2 are the olive trees and the 2 candlesticks standing before the Elohim of the earth. Now, let me show you a couple of things real quick. Oh, wait a minute. Hub. Before whom I stand. Now, I want to show you a couple of things. You saw the way John wrote that, right? Who stand before the Elohim of the earth. Let's look at the first one. What do you see? You see Eliyahu the prophet, or Eliah the prophet. He says, as Jehovah, not as the Lord liveth. Okay, let me go to Strong's Concordance so you can plainly see that the name of our Father in heaven is not the Lord. It's not Jesus. It is Jehovah right there. You can see it. Okay, and Eliah, that's how you pronounce his name correctly. It means Yah is Elohim. Okay? He said, as Jehovah of hosts lives before whom I stand, I will surely show myself unto him today. He was speaking about Ahab. Now, what possessed Eliah to say this? Well, an incident happened before. Let us go to no rain except at my word. Let's see here. let's see. I just have to type in Tishbite because that is where it starts. Here it is. 1 Kings 17. Verse 1. And Eliah the Tishbite, who was one of the inhabitants of Gilead, said unto Ahab, As Jehovah Elohim of Israel lives, before whom I stand. He says it again. Now I want to show you something. Let's look at this carefully. Verse 4 of Revelation 11 says, These are the 2 olive trees and 2 candlesticks standing before the Elohim of the earth. So clearly the 2 witnesses come with the power of Eliah. Clearly. Now let's see what Eliah was told to do. He says, As Jehovah Elohim of Israel lives, before whom I stand, there shall be no rain nor dew these years, but according to my word. How long did it last? I will show you how long it lasted. Let's see here. I'm trying to get the words in my mind here. James 5 and verse 17. James 5 and verse 17, it says, Eliah was a man with a nature like ours, and he prayed earnestly that it would not rain. And it did not rain on the land for 3 years and 6 months. And he prayed again, and the heaven gave rain, and the earth produced its fruit. All right. Revelation 11. They will prophesy 1,260 days. That's 1,260 days. That equals exactly 3 years and 6 months. Clothed in sackcloth, these are the 2 olive trees and the 2 candlesticks standing before the Elohim of the earth. If any man will hurt them, fire proceeds out of their mouth and devours their enemies. What did Eliah do when regiments of soldiers came to get him for Ahab? He called fire down from heaven. Essentially, not a sword came out of his mouth, but fire came out of his mouth. In other words, fire came at his word. And if any man will hurt them, he will be killed in this manner. And what is the first plague? Are you ready? If you're not ready, you better get ready. Because there is nothing that is going to stop this. Because vengeance upon Israel's enemies, vengeance upon those who trampled Jerusalem for 3.5 years. When trampling means absolutely desecrating it and destroying it and causing death, misery, and destruction inside of it. Payback in full has to be done for 3.5 years. The first plague. They have the power to shut the sky, that it rain not in the days of their prophecy. How long are the days of their prophecy? 1,260 days, 3.5 years. And they also have the powers over the water to turn them into blood and to smite the earth with all plagues for as often as they will. During this time, folks, It will be the most horrendous, most anguishing experience that the Gentiles, notice I say Gentiles because Israel is going to be saved out of it when these things happen. It is going to be the most agonizing, deadly experience that the Gentiles have ever suffered. Why? Well, to avenge Jerusalem. So in order to get a little bit of context, what I want to do is I want to point out a few things. YouTube has quite a few videos on the subject matter of Carthage. Now, Carthage, before Rome was anything, Carthage was a big, big, big city in North Africa in Tunisia, what is today Tunisia. The Phoenicians, which the Carthaginians were, they were basically rulers of the Mediterranean Sea. They were the capitalists of the Mediterranean Sea. And they traded with the people of Tarshish, which was in Spain and Portugal. And because of the Phoenicians, the Mediterranean era was full of life, full of vigor, full of capitalism. Not to say that there was nothing wrong with the people of Carthage. We must remember that the Phoenicians, they originated out of Tyre and Zidon, which today is Lebanon. They were Canaanites. Canaanites. Yes, Canaanites could excel. Children of Ham, they could excel, and they excelled far above anyone else in their day. Rome increased in power and saw Carthage as a rival. And you can see in these videos, especially Carthage, the Roman Holocaust, part 1 and 2, documentaries, or part 1 of 2, and then there's this one, the part 2 of 2. They're both around, give or take, maybe about an hour. It is good to understand what Rome did to Carthage. If you ever should wonder, if you ever should have doubt what the beast of iron in Daniel 2 and verse 40 was, the Carthage videos will illustrate it for you. And I'm going to go through a little bit of Daniel 2 first, and I have to search for the other one real quickly, and you'll begin to understand, especially if you listen to those 2 videos. The fourth kingdom shall be strong as iron, for as much as iron breaks in pieces and destroys all things, and as iron breaks all of these, it shall break into pieces and bruise. All right? I wonder if I can pull this up. Yeah, it would be in Daniel 7. Starting in verse 7 and then 19. Now, of course, when you read this particular dream, you see the four winds of heaven were stirring up the great sea. What is the great sea? It's the Mediterranean Sea. And I saw four great beasts that came up out of the sea, each different from the other. The first was like a lion, and it had eagle's wings. And I watched till its wings were plucked off, and it was lifted up from the earth, and was made to stand on 2 feet like a man, and a man's heart was given unto it. That was the first beast, Babylon, King Nebuchadnezzar. And the second, another beast, like a bear. It raised up on one side, and it had 3 ribs in its mouth and between its teeth. And they said thus to it, Arise and devour much flesh. That was the Medo-Persian Empire. And Persia was, although the king was a Mede by descent, Persia was the ruler of the Medo-Persian Empire. And after this, I looked, and there was another like a leopard, and it had on his back 4 wings of a bird. That beast also had 4 heads, and dominion was given unto it. That was the Grecian Empire. And after this I saw the night vision, and behold, a 4th beast, dreadful and terrible, exceedingly strong. It had huge iron teeth, and it was devouring and breaking and trampling the residue with its feet. This illustrates the Romans back about around 15 or 150 BCE, how they started and what they did to Carthage. I urge you to watch those 2 videos about Carthage, and you will understand that Rome is indeed the 4th beast. And it was different from all the beasts that were before it. And it also had 10 horns. Well, the 10 horns came later. The 10 horns came during the so-called papacy. And I considered the horns, and there was another horn, a little one. Basilisk, the Greek word basilisk or basilica came from, means little king, little horn, or the serpent. Let's go look at this real quickly here. Let's see here. It is alleged to be hatched by a cockerel from an egg of a serpent or a toad. All right. Dragon. All right. Sea serpent. Let's do this. Little horn means little king, right? In European bestiaries and legends, a basilisk is a legendary reptile reputed to be a serpent king who can cause death with a single glance. All right. According to the naturalist Historia of Pliny the Elder, the basilisk of Cyrene was a small snake, not being more than 12 fingers of width, right, of length. The basilisk called king because it is reputed to have on its head a mitre. Right here, basilisk medieval bestiary. The basilisk is usually described as a crested snake, sometimes as a cockerel of the serpents, because its Greek name basiliscus means little king. AKA little horn. The great basilisk is, guess where? At the Vatican. All right. Where was I? Okay, I was in Daniel 7. I considered the horns, and there was another horn, a little one, coming up among them, before who of the three of the first horns were plucked up by the roots. And as I remember, if I can remember off the top of my head, those three horns which were plucked up by the roots were, oh my goodness, the Vandals, Ostrogoths, and Heruli. Just so you can have a reference point. Vandals. All right. AmazingDiscoveries.com. Right here, it's summary. Daniel 7 tells us that the little horns, or anti-Messiah, will also uproot three horns of kingdoms. Three kingdoms did not accept the papal mandates regarding the Christos divinity, were literally uprooted and mercilessly destroyed. Look, it's not just me talking about this, folks. This even gives you a date. The Heruli, Vandals, and Ostrogoths were eliminated by the year 538. This power was to arise between 476 AD and 538. So, all fingers point to the man at the Vatican. Little horn uprooted 3 of the 10. It's all documented. These conquests strengthened the hand of the papacy, which was established by the year 538 AD, and that year Vigilus, the bishop of Rome, ascended to the papal throne under the protection of the Roman general Basileius. The date of the establishment of the papal Rome as an independent power can thus be pinned at 538 AD. So, he says, verse 8, I was considering the horns, and there was another horn, a little one, little king, Basilisk, the serpent, coming up among them, before whom the 3 of the first horns were plucked up by the root. And there in this horn were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking pompous words or great things. Why? He called himself God or the Father. Just like Antiochus IV, the first abomination of desolation. Just like Caligula, the man of sin, who ordered the second abomination of desolation, and who Titus, the prince of the Romans, son of Vespasian the Caesar, fulfilled the second abomination of desolation. His throne was at the imperial seat of the Caesars, and the man who calls himself God, yes, he does, at the Vatican, still sits on that throne, and he is described accurately right here in verse 8. This is a vision, and I watched, and I continued to watch. He remained in place until thrones were cast down, and the Ancient of Days, which is Jehovah the Father, took his seat. Where? On the Temple Mount. His throne came down and sat on the Temple Mount. His garment was white as snow, and the hair of his head was like pure wool. His throne was a fiery flame, its wheels a burning fire, exactly as written in Ezekiel chapter 1. It's going to come the same way it left. A fiery stream issued and came forth before him, and thousands ministered unto him, and 10,000s stood before him, and the court was in session, and the books of evidence were opened. Just like that. And I watched then, because of the sound of the pompous words which the horn continued to speak while this was going on. What do you suppose he was saying about what was happening on the Temple Mount while he was sitting on the serpent's throne in Rome? And I watched until the beast was slain, and his body destroyed and given to the burning flame. As for the rest of the beasts, they had their dominion taken away, yet their lives were prolonged for a season and a time. And I saw in the night visions, and behold, one like the Son of Man coming with the cloud of the sky. And he came to the Ancient of Days. Yes, the Ancient of Days was sitting on the throne on the Temple Mount, on his holy mountain. And they, the angels, brought him near before him, and then to him was given dominion, and the glory, and the kingdom, and all the peoples, the Gentiles, and languages should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion which shall not pass away, and his kingdom the one which shall never be destroyed. I, Daniel, was grieved in my spirit within my body, and the visions of my head troubled me. I came near to one of those angels who stood by and asked him the truth of all of this. And he told me and made known to me the interpretation of these things. These great beasts, which are four kings, which shall arise out of the earth. But the Kodesh, all right, folks, do not let the man at the Vatican fool you. Let's see here. Where was I? What happened? Something's not right. What did I do? Yeah, I'm in the right chapter. Season of time. Okay. Oh, here we go. I, Daniel, was grieved in my spirit in the midst of my body, and the visions of my head troubled me. And came near to one of them that passed by. And I asked him the truth of all of this, and he told me and made me know the interpretation of these things, these great beasts, which are four kings which shall arise out of the earth, out of the earth. This is not the Eretz, by the way, so they're not arising out of the land of Israel. They're arising up out of the earth. But the Kodesh, or the Kaddish, the holy people. The holy people. He calls himself the Holy One of Israel, does he not? So the holy people of the Most High. You can't have the one without the other. It's either the people of the Most High or the Elohim of Israel. It's the same thing. So, the holy people of the Most High shall receive the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever, even forever and ever. And I would know the truth of the fourth beast, which was different from all the others, exceedingly dreadful, whose teeth were of iron and his nails of brass, which devoured and broke in pieces, and tread. See that word, tread? And tread, trample the rest with his feet. Revelation 11. Verse 2, but the court which is outside the temple leave out and measure it not, for it is given to the Gentiles. Which Gentiles? The ones who tread with their feet. The Romans. In the holy city they shall tread underfoot for 42 months. They shall tread it down and break it into pieces, shattered. And the 10 horns out of his kingdom, of this kingdom, are 10 kings that shall arise, and another shall rise after them, the man at the Vatican, and he will be different from the first. And he shall subdue 3 kings. We already know who those kingdoms were. And he will speak great words. This word is against the Most High. Against, what does it say? Elahi. Or against Jehovah. Against the Holy One of Israel. They have done this already. Now, I don't want to deviate from this too much, but as you have been told in previous videos, that the X and the cross, they are the mark of the beast. Okay? In other words, the symbol of the beast. Now, one of the reasons why I tell people do not put the letter J in the word Jehovah when you speak his name. There is a reason for this, folks, and I'm going to show it to you right now. At my own personal risk, I give you the truth. Because in the old Latin language, there was no such thing as a J. That the letter J came later. What came before it was the same sound, and it was the letter X. The letter X, along with ES in the Greek numerals, are 666, the number of his name. XESUS is his name. And so what the Latins liked to do was spell the name of our Father in heaven this way. You see what comes up here? J. JWs. Now, watch carefully. Do you know what language this is? This is the Latin language, the language of the man at the Vatican. To go and place this horrific mark on his name is blasphemous, and it is boasting against our Father in heaven himself. His name is not this, it is Yehovah. I hope you understand. Now, he will speak great words, or a great word, singular, against the Most High. And then one of the other ways of doing it is changing the name of Yehoshua, the Messiah, whose name, the name of our Father, is in, and change it to Jesus. Yet another blasphemous title or name. And he will wear away the Kaddish of the Most High. He did. But this was not only done, see, this 3.5 years of treading down the Jerusalem had already occurred. And now we see, so he's associating all of the emperors and kings of Rome as one, including the men at the Vatican today. Right? It says he will think to change the times and the laws, and they shall be given into his hand, that is the Jews, until a times, and dividing of a time. Now, Yehoshua said, until the time of the Gentiles come to an end. I'll show you. Luke 21. Luke 21. Remember, this already happened, and the Romans, be it both the Catholic and the Greek Orthodox, still lay claim to some of the most important parts of Jerusalem to this day. And when you shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies, you know its desolation is near. Was it encompassed with armies? Yes, it was. Whose armies were they encompassed with? Rome. Ordered by, the original order was by Caligula, then Nero, then Vespasian, who his son committed the act. Titus committed the act. Then let them which are in Judea flee into the mountains, and let them in their midst of it depart out, and let them which are in the country do not go into the city. For these be the days of vengeance, that all which are written may be fulfilled. But woe to them that are with child and give suck in those days, and there shall be great distress in the land, and wrath upon his people. Was there wrath upon Jerusalem? You bet your bottom dollar it was. It happened. Look how the Messiah says this. Look how he talks about this. And they will fall by the edge of the sword, and they will be led away captive into all nations. And Jerusalem will be trodden down of the Gentiles until the time of the Gentiles comes to an end, is fulfilled. The time will be fulfilled when that man, this man here, Verse 11, I beheld then, because of the voice of the great words which the horn spoke, I beheld even until the beast was slain, and his body destroyed and given to the burning flame. Now that's both literal and figurative. What do I mean by that? Well, the beast, the man at the Vatican, and his land are the same. What am I getting at? What I'm getting at, we're going back to Revelation 11 now. And these two witnesses that took direct orders from the Elohim of the earth, just like Eliah, Moses, and Aaron took orders from the same creator being. You are to do this. He orders retaliation for what they did to Jerusalem. And so, the two witnesses will be sent back to Rome and burn it with fire. How? Have you ever wondered what it was like for there to be a month of no rain on a lush, beautiful landscape? You know the first thing that happens, right? Fire. Fire. Fire everywhere. Now just imagine now, 3.5 years of no rain. This won't be just on Rome. At the very least, it'll be on the entire European continent. It will be engulfed in flames. People will be starving to death. Look at what happened to Carthage. See, they've got more, and look what happened to Jerusalem too, because this is not about what happened to Carthage, although what happened to Carthage is illustrated very well. But this was Carthage, I believe, if I remember correctly, was Rome, the Roman Republic's first act, as I understand, to let the whole world know that Rome is the big dog now. They made an example out of Carthage. They made sure that nobody was left alive in Carthage. They burned the entire place to the ground after they starved the residents, many of them to death, in their siege. But this is what they did to Jerusalem too, you see, folks. And then they went and basically changed the entire landscape of Carthage. They made Carthage an example. This was what they were used to doing, and when it came to Jerusalem, they figured it would be no different. But because they did it to Jerusalem, they did it to the apple of Jehovah's eye. And everything that Rome did to Jerusalem must be done to Rome. There's not going to be any living, breathing soul in Rome when it's all said and done. In fact, if you read Daniel 2, you will see the iron, the clay, the brass, and the silver, and the gold will break in pieces together, and they will become like the chaff of the summer threshing floors, and the wind will carry them away, and no place will be found for them. There will be no living, breathing soul in their lands. because of what they did to Jerusalem. And if you don't think that this episode is going to be the worst disaster, it's going to be the worst disaster that mankind has ever experienced, folks. Let's go to Daniel 12. And these words will be spoken out of the mouth of two witnesses, two of the Kodesh, the holy people. Verse 1, and at that time Michael shall stand up, the great prince which stands up for the your people, the people of Israel. And there shall be a time of trouble. All right, let's look up the words here. Let's go to Strong's Concordance. Let's do our due diligence here. There shall be a time of adversity, straits, distress. Let me show you something. Is it here? Is it in Luke 21? There it is, right here. Verse 25, and there shall be signs in this is after the time of the Gentiles is finished. When Jehovah, the Holy One of Israel, finally sets his throne down on the Temple Mount. Everyone will see it. There will be signs in the sun and in the moon and in the stars and upon the earth, distress of nations with perplexity. All right, let's go to Strong's Concordance. Perplexity, the sea, the Mediterranean Sea, and the waves roaring. Men's hearts. People will be passing out, dying of heart attacks, for fear, for terror, and for the expectation to come on the earth, because the powers of heaven will be shaken. And they shall see the Son of Man. Oh, look. Oh, this is what I was distressed. The word distress. See, this is what I was looking at. Distress of nations. Distress, anguish upon the Gentiles. Right? Okay. Straits, distress. No, we go back to Daniel 12. And we'll see, you see it's the same thing here. There shall be a time of trouble. Where is it? Time of trouble. Distress, straits and distress. Okay? Such as never was, since there was a nation, even to that time of the end. And at that time, your people, Daniel, what people? The ones he was praying about in Daniel 9. He said, all Israel. Daniel did. Your people shall be delivered at that time. At what time? At the time that the two witnesses are calling 3.5 years of no rain upon the earth, bringing down plagues of every kind imaginable, including meteors falling from the sky, Every plague written in the book. Now, your people shall be delivered, and they shall attain written in the book. And they will be found written in the book. That's what it says. Remember what Paul said. Please do not say but. Let me show you something. Romans 11. I know that the King James Version likes to put in there, everyone that is found written in the book. But let me show you what Paul said. Verse 25, I would not, brethren, that you should be ignorant of this mystery. What brethren? The Romans. Lest you should be wise in your own conceits, that blindness in part is happened to Israel, until the fullness of the Gentiles be come in. Does that sound familiar? It should by now if you've been watching these videos. And so all Israel shall be saved. All? Well, not all, is it? Okay, let's examine the word all, or in Greek, pas. 3956. All, the whole, every kind, each and every Israelite is going to be saved. I know you Gentile, you church Gentiles have a difficult time with that. I am asking you to please get off of your high horse now. The reason why you have trouble with this is because you and your religion have boasted against the people of Israel. It is because you are anti-Semites, and even worse, it is because you hate the Savior, the one who is going to do this. Who is the Savior? The Savior is Jehovah the Father. That's right. He's the Savior. Even the Messiah's name declares that Jehovah is the Savior of Israel. And so, when you make derogatory comments about the Jews, when you make derogatory comments about Israel, when you call them the devil's people and the serpent's people, you are calling our Father in heaven note what you are calling him. That's you. You are doing this. Don't sit here and try to paint the whole of Israel when Messiah told the Pharisees that because they committed murder and they used the Romans to do it, that they were children of the serpent. And you want to go and paint the entirety of Israel this way? Anyone who uses the Romans, aka the serpent, to commit murder, it doesn't matter who you are one of them. You are a traitor. That's why he called the Pharisees serpents and vipers. If you get your power from them, that's what you are. All Israel shall be saved. Every Israelite shall be saved. You see that word? All, the whole, every kind of, each and every, each part of a totality. It sounds to me like even the half-breeds, the quarter breeds, or even maybe, could it be somebody like me? 5% or more, who knows? But I'm not going to sit here and be silent about this. The emphasis of the total picture then is on one piece at a time. This word is all-encompassing. When it means all Israel, it means all Israel. No exception, no ifs, ands, or buts. And if you want to know how he's going to judge between people and people and cattle when he brings them into the land again, all you have to do is go look at Ezekiel 34. That will straighten out all your silly little questions after the fact. But make no mistake about it, folks. When you read, I insist that when you read this, you use the Strong's Concordance because it says right here in verse 22, and they, which means Israel also. It's not if, it's before they no longer abide in unbelief. While they are still in unbelief is what it's saying is they shall be grafted in again. And if you read Ezekiel 36, it says, from that day and forward, Israel shall believe as a people. They're going to be saved first. You Christians, you claim that Israel has to believe first before they can be saved, and since they will never believe, they can never be saved. Well, that is a lie that has been foisted off on the Gentiles by the devil himself. They will be saved first. How? When they will believe when, let me show you something, when all these things happen to the Gentiles, when all these horrific things, terrible things happen to the Gentiles. Let me show you. You remember what we just discussed about what 3.5 years of no rain will do to a beautiful green Europe, to all their forests, to all their lands and everything. It will turn it into a burning, fiery desert where nothing can grow. There will be no fresh water to drink anywhere because the water will be turned into blood. The torture and the agony that's going to happen to these people. Let me go to Ezekiel 36, and then I want to talk about, back to Revelation again. 39. Ezekiel 39. Okay, looky here. Verse 6, I will send a fire on Magog and among those that dwell carelessly in the coastlands of the Mediterranean Sea. How is he going to do that? By the two witnesses, there will be no rain. No rain. And the place is going to erupt in fire. Fire, folks. And I will make my holy name known in the midst of my people Israel. What? They don't know his holy name? No, they call him Hashem. But they do fear his name because they're afraid to say it. It's not like the Gentiles that hate his name. They fear his name and are afraid to say it. And I will not let them pollute my holy name anymore, and the heathen shall know that I am Jehovah, not the Lord, The Holy One of Israel, not of the Gentiles. He's not your Holy One. No, he's the Holy One of Israel. Behold, it is come and it is done. It's not going, you can't escape it, folks. There's no deviation. He says it is as good as done. Saith Jehovah, this is the day. What day? The great tribulation that he has spoken of. That's the day when Magog and the people on the coastlands of the Mediterranean Sea are going to be set on fire. Now, then it talks about all the burying that the people of Israel are going to have to do, and the cleansing the land for 7 months shall the house of Israel be burying them, that they may cleanse the land. Yes, all of the people of the land will bury them, and it will be then to a day of renown. They're going to make a memorial of that day. And I tell you what else is going to happen on that day. Right? And he describes it even more so right here. And the Messiah says, after the disciples said, "Where, Master, where?" He says, that where the vultures and buzzards are, that's where the dead carcasses are going to be. And as you can see in verse 17, 18, 19, and 20, this is exactly what he was describing. Verse 21, and I will set my glory among the heathen, and all the heathen shall see my judgment that I have executed, and my hand that I have laid upon them. So that the house, why? Why is he going to do this? Well, one of the reasons is so that the house of Israel shall know that he is Jehovah their Elohim from that day. From what day? That day of renown. From that day and forward. Well, he's going to save them first. And then they shall believe. Just like Paul said here in Romans 11. Before, right here, they also, before, you see that word? Learn it. Before they start believing, they will be grafted in. That is completely opposite of what the Christians teach today. Diametrically in opposition. You Christians, you are on the wrong side of the truth. And because of that, ruin, tribulation, anguish. It's happening. It's going to happen. What Rome did to Carthage and what Rome did to Jerusalem is going to happen to not just Rome, but to the entirety of Western civilization. You better be on the correct side of this argument. If you stand there with your Christian friends, belittling the Jews for this, you belittle them for this. Let me show you something. I would not, brethren, that you should be ignorant of this mystery, lest you should be wise in your own conceits, that blindness in part has happened to Israel. You belittle the Jews, you belittle Israel because blindness in part has happened to them. You claim to take up the new covenant. They merely don't believe there is one. But you claim to take of the new covenant, and then you tread it underfoot as if it is a detestable thing. That cannot be forgiven. It will not be forgiven. Hebrews 10 proves it. Now, in this chapter, right here in verse 16, what covenant is he talking about? The new covenant. And who is he talking about it being for? This is the covenant that I will make with them after those days, when the time of the Gentiles comes to the full. Read it in Jeremiah. You can read it in Jeremiah 31, verses 31 through 34, along with me while I'm reading this. You can read it word for word, verbatim. I will put my Torah into their hearts and their minds, and I will write, in their minds will I write them, and their sins and iniquities will I remember no more. Okay? So now, if claiming the new covenant, since that is the new covenant, if while claiming the new covenant, you Gentiles do this. Verse 26, for if we sin willfully after we have received the knowledge of the truth. What truth? The knowledge of the new covenant. If we sin willfully after we have received the knowledge of the new covenant, what does it mean by that? You'll see. There remains no more sacrifice for sins, but a certain fearful looking for of judgment and fiery indignation. That's it. We just read about it. We just talked about it. Savagely abuse the Jews, to boast against the branches because the Jews were partly blinded. That is breaking the new covenant. There is no forgiveness for that. The only thing that is left is looking for the judgment and fiery indignation which shall devour the adversaries. What adversaries? Rome and Roman Christianity. Now, he that despised the old covenant under Moses died without mercy under 2 or 3 witnesses. How much worse punishment suppose you who claim to be a covenant, a new covenant person, who went and then goes and treads down underfoot the Son of God, the Son of Jehovah, who is the testator of the new covenant. And then you count the blood of the new covenant, wherewith you were sanctified as an unholy thing, and you that were spiteful to the Spirit of grace. You showed no grace. You showed no mercy to the Jews. Therefore, there is no forgiveness. None. That's the sin. If we sin willfully after we receive knowledge of the truth. That's the sin he's talking about. To go and boast against the branches. To abuse them. Because they are partly blind. Shame. Shame. Shame on the current Christian religion today. Shame on all of it. They have tread down the Son of Jehovah underfoot and counted his blood of the covenant wherewith they were sanctified as common, unholy, and were spiteful to the Spirit of grace. And we know him that says, vengeance belongs to me, I will repay, says Jehovah. And again, Jehovah shall judge his people. It is a fearful thing to fall into the hands of the living Jehovah. It's coming. fire, starvation, thirst, everything that Rome caused the Jews of Jerusalem to suffer, and more. Double. It's going to be double. Twice as bad. Revelation 18 and verse 6. Yes, she sits in her heart. She says, I sit as a queen and no more widow, and I shall not see sorrow. And because of this, I will have yet again need to go ahead and pull this up. And synagogue. Images. See if I can find the image. There it is, right there. That's it. There is synagogue. She is blinded. And there is ecclesia with a crown on her head and a golden cup in her hand. Right there. Let's see if I can move this. Like, there you go. Right there. There she is with a golden cup in her hand and a scepter in her hand and a crown on her head. And she is the church, looking disdainfully and downward at synagogue, boasting against the branches. Therefore, I heard another voice from heaven, come out of her, my people. That would be Israel. And do not share in her sins, lest you receive her plagues. Because her sins have reached to heaven, and Jehovah has remembered her iniquities. This is what Paul was talking about. Render unto her as she is rendered unto you. Repay her double. Double. Make it twice as bad. Is it even possible to make it twice as bad as what Rome did to Jerusalem? That is the edict. That is the order that's going to be carried out. Make it twice as bad. In the cup, and repay her double according to her works. In the cup which she has mixed, yeah, that cup that you saw, mix unto her double. In the measure that she has glorified herself and she has lived luxuriously, in the same measure give her torment sorrow. For she says in her heart, I sit as a queen. I am no widow, and I will not see sorrow. Therefore her plagues will come in one day, death and mourning and hunger. And she will be utterly burned with fire. 3.5 years, folks. 1,203 score days. It is coming. And every one of you who trampled on the new covenant, claiming to partake of the new covenant, while out of your filthy mouth you despise the Jews. You call them the devil's people. You call them the synagogue of Satan, you do. Well, it's you. You judge yourself. You condemn yourself. Therefore, a verdict is going to be rendered against you. It is not me that is judging you. It is you that judges you. And our Father in heaven is going to render judgment upon all the enemies of Israel all of those who boast against the branches that Paul warned them not to do. 3.5 years of no rain is coming. If you are not escaping with the rest of the Israel, if you do not escape with the rest of Israel, you shall suffer the same fate. And there will be of the Gentiles, the Romans, and very few will remain alive. Proof? This needs to be driven home, folks. I cannot stress enough the importance to understand what's coming. Isaiah 24 talks about this exact same thing. The land's utterly emptied. Everything horrible, tragedy, and tribulation is happening on the earth. And why? Because, verse 5, the earth is defiled under the inhabitants thereof. How did it happen? Them shedding innocent blood. In the name of the new covenant, they did. Look, because they have transgressed the laws, changed the ordinance, and broken the everlasting covenant, the new covenant. Look, just to make a point here, in her was found, Revelation verse 8, we were just there. In her was found the blood of the prophets and the saints, which are the Kaddish or Kodesh. And all, what? Not only that, but all of those that have been slain on the earth. That means the people of Carthage too. Yes, it does. And all of those that were slain on earth, her land is soaked in blood. And some of these acts they had done while they claimed the everlasting covenant. Therefore, right here, everlasting covenant, therefore has the curse devoured the earth, and they that dwell therein are desolate. Everything, earthquaking, confusion. The city of confusion is broken down. What do you mean, city of confusion? Babylon is a city of confusion. Modern day Rome, or Rome is modern day Babylon. The city of confusion is broken down. Every house is shut up, and no man may come in. Look at this. The earth was quaking. There's a shaking of an olive tree when it's being gleaned. And as the gleaning grapes, when the vintage is done, shake them up good. Get them all down. That's what's happening to the land. Okay? And there are people, while this is happening, being gathered up out of their lands, and they're lifting up their voices, and they're singing for the majesty of Jehovah, and they will be crying aloud at the Mediterranean Sea. And the angels will come and get them. Why are you glorifying Jehovah in the fires, even the name of Jehovah, Elohim of Israel, in the coastlands of the Mediterranean Sea? Yes, the people of Israel will be standing in the fires, glorifying Jehovah. When they see this happening, they will be picked up by whatever means is given to the angels at their disposal. By every means, including if they have to hijack jet planes to do it. It will happen. Fear and the pit and the snare are upon you, O inhabitants of the earth. And it shall come to pass that he who flees from the noise of the fear shall fall into the pit, and he that comes up out of the midst of the pit shall be taken in a snare. For the windows from on high are open, means meteorites are falling from the sky, and the foundations of the earth do shake. The earth is utterly broken down, and the earth is clean dissolved, and the earth is moved exceedingly. And the earth shall reel to and fro like a drunkard, and shall be moved like a cottage, and the transgression shall be heavy upon it. It shall fall, and it shall not rise again. In other words, Western civilization is going to fall, and it will never, ever rise again. Rome is finished. Rome is done. It's over. And it shall come to pass in that day that Jehovah will punish the host, the armies of the high ones. Yes, that little horn, his armies, the cross carriers, and all their armies, and the kings of the earth that dwell upon the earth. And those kings, they shall be gathered together like prisoners are gathered into the pit, and they will be shut up in prison, and after many days they shall be visited. And this is going to happen in the days that the moon was confounded, the sun is ashamed. In other words, the moon turned to darkness and the sun turned to blood. And the day, great and terrible day of Jehovah begins. And that's when Jehovah of hosts will reign in Mount Zion. I told you, I told you that his throne is going to set down on Mount Zion at the Temple Mount. Did I not? There's your proof. And in Jerusalem, and before his ancients, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, gloriously. Yes, 3.5 years of no rain is coming. There is no escape. Look, you can sit here if you think that you can store barrel after barrel after barrel of beans and rice, and barrel after barrel after barrel after barrel of water. What are you going to do when the two witnesses turn your water into blood? What are you going to do? Preppers, it's not going to help. You know, I partly commend your efforts, but if you are in violation of the new covenant, it's not going to help. You will not accomplish a thing. You had better hope for one of two things: that you have Israelite blood in you somehow, or that you are in awe of all of what the new covenant means. You have to be a Zionist. If you are a partaker of the new covenant, you will understand that Jeremiah 31 verses 31 through 34, that Hebrews 8 verses 8 through 12, you will understand that is in reference to the whole house of Israel, all 10 tribes, including Dan. You will know this, you will understand it, and you will believe it. And if you believe the new covenant, even as a Gentile, you will be saved too. You will be taken where all the other Israelites are taken, and you will be grafted in among them into one of the branches of Israel. But if you boast against the branches, like your preachers do, like your preachers teach you to do, then you will receive the punishment that was just described in front of you. This is no laughing matter. This is not the time to send me messages on YouTube and start belittling what I'm saying here. Because when it happens and you're wasting away, you're going to remember. You're going to know the reason why. Don't be on the wrong side of the new covenant, folks. You do not want to experience the end result.